terrific story Jared Jones is becoming. And I mean that in the best way possible. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Phillies 5, Pirates 1 last night in Philadelphia. Jones had another start where he didn't necessarily get the results, in large part because the offense was virtually non-existent. But he sure did pitch well. And, that kind of matters. 6 1/3 innings, 3 runs, 6 hits, 8 strikeouts, 0 walks, and 2 home runs. And of course, the competitor that he is, all he wanted to talk about afterward was the 2 home runs.
Yeah, I made 2 really bad pitches today, and they ended up hurting me. I threw a curveball right down the middle, and that went over the fence, and I threw a slider right down the middle, and that went over the fence. So executing those 2 pitches, it's everything. Yeah.
Well, he's right. I mean, Alec Boehm hit that pitch a long way. Then Brandon Marsh hit that other pitch a long way. Colin Holderman came in after that and couldn't. Wow, I can't avoid the pun, I guess, right? Couldn't hold them. And none of it mattered. It just, this team wasn't going to hit last night. Ranger Suarez was on, and they were off, and there was just nothing to this particular sporting event. But I'll take Jones. I'll take Jones pitching through some adversity and still coming out okay on the other end. I'd mentioned something along these lines to him the other day at PNC Park, and he seemed to appreciate it. He also seemed to, kind of agree with it. He knows that his stuff is playing in the majors. When a younger pitcher comes up, no matter what their pedigree, no matter what their velocity or spin rate, they still need to get results in the majors. They still need to see swings and misses. They still need to see guys backing off speed pitches because they got backed off by the fastball before that. They need to see that the stuff that worked for them at the previous level works at this of all levels. Because as you're coming up through the minors, you're filled with, and not that any of this is wrong, all this, oh yeah, but that pitch, that'll never play in the majors. They hear that constantly. Or if they've got like one particular out pitch, they'll say, well, you can't keep leaning on that in the minors. You got to be able to get them out with every pitch in the majors. And of course you don't. So that debut in Miami resonated with Jones. He didn't let it get to his head, but instead just used it as fuel. He used it as more motivation to keep going, to keep proving to himself that he belongs here and that he belongs here now. I gotta tell you, and again, I'm reiterating something for you that I already shared with him. I'd rather see this than I would, like 3 magical Steven Strasburg type gems that top Sports Center and everyone's talking about the new strikeout king whiz and he's going to be better than Paul Skeens. And yes, there was some of that. I know, but there was some of that after Miami. I'd rather see him do this. I'd rather see him mature as a pitcher right in front of our eyes. And that's what he's done. You look at the arsenal that he put on display last night in Philadelphia. You look at, every pitcher is different in terms of how much they pay attention to their own offense, but you are aware of the score. So every time he's taken the mound, he sees that his guys have 0 and the other guys have something. And that can drag a pitcher down, especially a young pitcher. It can add pressure to them. All of these are checked boxes for this young man. I am not positive spinning this for you. I don't actually operate with that particular gear. What I am sharing here is genuine. I think a lot more of Jones right now after 3 starts than I did after 1. And that's to his credit, and that's to the Pirates' credit. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Chris, who asks, DK, what are the top 3 Pirates games you've attended in your lifetime? Dude, I mean, it's a really long list to choose from. If I was only choosing from the games that I've covered professionally as a reporter, I'd be picking from 20 years. This is my 20th year on the baseball beat in Pittsburgh. But you said lifetime. That affords a lot of other options because I'm a lifer here in Pittsburgh, and I was going to ball games back when I was a little lad. But I'm going to make this easier than maybe I even thought it would be when I first glanced at your question. I'm going to start off with the road game, and that was when Jeff Karstens almost threw a perfect game. That was, I do all these shows off the top of my head, so I'm not about to research this, but it was a few years back. A lot of you will remember this. In Phoenix, it was a getaway day game, and I had a flight that night, a nonstop out of Sky Harbor Airport, and let's just say that I got increasingly nervous as the game went along because I realized that if, in fact, Karstens had done this, and I believe at the time he would have been only the 14th pitcher to throw a perfecto, and he was just... It's hard to describe this game. Unless you remember it yourself, you're not going to even believe me when I tell you that it was, especially in the first 2-3 innings, just an endless series of screaming line drives at people. It looked like the kind of game in which Karstens or anyone who was getting hit that hard wasn't even going to make it out of the first couple of innings. And then, as Karstens was known to do, Mr. Cool Customer, Mr. Pure Pitcher, not relying on his stuff anywhere near as much as his brains, he settled down and he started to get quick, easy outs. They were on contact. He wasn't blowing the ball past anybody because he never blew the ball past anybody. And as this went along, this game happened so fast, you're thinking, wow, I mean, look, it's the 5th inning or it's the 6th inning. This isn't funny anymore. This is actually going to happen. I'm not comfortable admitting this to you, but, you know, professional reporter or whatever else, but I'm sitting there like, I'm nervous, not just because of my flight. I'm nervous for him. Karstens is one of my dudes still to this day. And I'm thinking, can you imagine if I'm here, if I'm the reporter, because this is the way you have to think about it in the moment, who's covering a perfect game, who's covering a guy I know well throwing a perfect game. And Chris Young came up 8th inning and lashed a double to left. No doubter, not one of those where you'd have to worry about the scoring decision or anything like that. And the whole event seemed so surreal that it had to be on my list. Number 2 was the blackout game. You knew it would make it onto this list. Nobody needs me to elaborate on the blackout and why it was special. And number 1, since you said lifetime, I'm going to precede my days of covering the team and go way back to 1977. I was 11 years old. And my dad used to take me, my late dad, lost him a couple of years ago, used to take me to ball games at Three River Stadium. We weren't exactly swimming in cash, so he would take me on discount days, and sometimes we'd even go at night. For those of you who remember Three Rivers, you could get into the security entrance at half price after the 7th inning. I have no idea why they ever did that, but they did. So we would do some of those. I'd go down there, I'd see 3 innings of ball, and I'd be like the happiest kid in the world, right? He took me to see John Candelaria taking on Nolan Ryan. Those of you who are old enough, and I wasn't. I mean, I was 11. But those of you who are old enough to recall what a pitching matchup like that would mean to people who love baseball back then, the beauty of a truly elite pitching matchup, the way these two players would commandeer the entire game, not just through their performances, but also through their poise, their presence. And I'm going to say the names again, John Candelaria and Nolan Ryan. And if one of those doesn't strike you as being symmetrical with the other, this was the year after the Candyman had his no-hitter against the Dodgers. And many, many years later, when I was covering the team now, in having one of those early morning, let's just go sit on a bucket, talk ball kind of conversations with Chuck Tanner, I asked Chuck about the greatest pitcher in Pirates history, because I'm of the opinion that the franchise still hasn't had one. I know that sounds nuts, but go ahead and name one, and you won't be able to. And Chuck said it's John Candelaria, without a question. Now, I'm not in a position to argue with Chuck Tanner, so believe you me, I'm just listening. He'd never seen a pitcher, he'd never managed a pitcher who'd gone to the mound with everything that the Candyman would bring in those years when he was at the peak of his craft. So because of the way you asked the question and because of my memories of my dad and me sitting there, we had really good seats too. I can remember them like yesterday. First base box seats, probably about 7 or 8 rows back. And Candy, of course, being the lefty, he's basically pitching right at you. You're looking right at his face. Yeah. All right, look what you did now. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates, and we're going to do another one of these on Monday.